I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government. What do you want me to say about slavery?
The North was infringing on the freedom of the Southern government to own slaves, and then the South was right. Nikki Haley was speaking at a town hall where she gave a rather weird response when asked about what caused the Civil War. It seems she quickly got uncomfortable and tried to use debate-like tactics to avoid answering the question altogether by springing it on the person who asked her when it's really just a basic question and she's the one who's the presidential speaker. She even calls it a hard question outright before just not mentioning slavery altogether as a reason for the Civil War. She does it because in doing so, she knows she would upset a large portion of her Southern base, but she's also not really well versed enough in the topic to really confidently skirt around the truth and omit it, making for some really big cringe. Check it out yourself.
Well, don't come with an easy question or anything. I mean, I think the cause of the Civil War was basically how government was going to run, the freedoms and what people could and couldn't do. What do you think the cause of the Civil War was? I'm sorry?
I'm not ready to be president. I want to see your view on the cause of the Civil War.
I mean, I think it always comes down to the role of government. We need to have capitalism. We need to have economic freedom. We need to make sure that we do all things so that individuals have the liberties so that they can have freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to do or be anything they want to be without government getting in the way.
Thank you. And in the year 2023, it's astonishing to me that you answer that question without mentioning the word slavery.
What do you want me to say about slavery? Next question.
For those of you who don't know, this is completely false. The Civil War was started for a few main reasons, and while the morality side of abolishing slavery wasn't focused on until later when the war had already started, all of the reasons in the beginning still tie back to slavery itself. For instance, states' rights was one of the main issues, with the core component being Southern states wanting to abolish the federal laws that prevented them from keeping and taking slaves wherever they wanted, like into the North, for instance. Another main issue was territorial expansion as a whole, with the main disagreement being the South wanting to expand their slavery totally and into Western territories, and the North at time being committed to it staying in the South, with the last main reason being tariffs, mainly the ones that oppose cotton trades to countries like Britain, for instance, which the South was open to trade with, and of course the cotton trade is fueled by slavery, so that itself still ties back to slavery. And the last one worth mentioning would be Abraham Lincoln then winning the election without a single Southern electorate vote, and they realized, oh, not only now is this stuff going to be legislated at a federal level, but they're losing their influence in the USA. But it's really weird because even though slavery clearly was the main cause of the Civil War, you really can do like the, oh, slavery wasn't the cause and make a coherent argument, but she clearly had little idea about the topic as a whole. Like she could say, oh, the South had a different economic view and that's what it was, or it was about an exchange of wealth and you know, something along those lines. But instead she's just like, oh, you know, differing governments and freedom of governments, which really just makes more questions than answers if you ask me. Like if it was about governmental freedom, or is she saying that the North was right in trying to fight for the freedom of the slaves, or is she saying that the North was infringing on the freedom of the Southern government to own slaves, and then the South was right to start the war? It doesn't make sense. There's more questions than answers. And why are you asking them anyway? You're supposed to be the one who has these answers. You're the presidential candidate. But this is what happens when you're speaking on topics that you're not well versed enough to do the whole skipping around the truth speak that you see like people who are rhetorically effective do, like Vivek, for instance. Trump even is as stupid as he is, he's good at it. But when you're timid to annex a part of your base and you're also not confident enough to like skirt around the truth and still sound coherent, it makes for a lot of cringe, you know? And Nikki Haley definitely needs to cling to any side of the base that she has left, especially the stake she's placed in New Hampshire, especially needing like the Trump base, the people who maybe like Trump would love hearing this speech. So in the presidential primary, it's funny though, because this is exactly how you whitewash slavery in the Civil War, but sadly enough, her being a Republican, this might help her more than it hurts her. If you enjoyed this video, we're Social Society. We're a commentary channel influenced by politics, society, and the economy. We are pretty left-leaning on this channel, but we're open to our right-wingers as well. The biggest thing here is having conversations that get everyone to the bottom of the truth. If that sounds like something that could interest you, consider smashing that subscribe button, leaving us a like, or even commenting on this video, because the only way we become a society is together.